Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the IRU EU Conference. Thank you for your interest in driving the future of data. My name is Raluca Marian. I am the General Delegate of IRU's Permanent Delegation to the EU. I will be your host and moderator today. We are in the middle of a social and economic turmoil caused by an invisible enemy, the coronavirus. And our operators, both passenger and freight transport, have been severely hit. Yet, we are looking beyond, and the future will be undeniable digital. The digitalization brings potential opportunities to transport operators and to the entire economy, including the potential for a green economy and also for better and cost efficiencies. And still, should all these benefits be taken for granted? Recently, IRU joined forces with other transport stakeholders of all modes to call the EU for special consideration and good framework on business-to-business data. Business-to-business will also be our focus today. And we will look into the benefits or potential benefits of data sharing for transport operators, as well and in the cost and price of data. Before actually starting the event, I would like just to remind you some housekeeping rules. The event will be recorded, and the link to the recording will be shared with you at the end of the event. Also, you will have the possibility to communicate with us, not by voice. You will all be muted by default, but please, we would really like to have this event very interactive. You can use the chat box at the bottom of your screen in order to communicate your thoughts and your questions. This will all be seen by the technical moderator of our session, Claire Meyers, and Claire will share this with us. And now, let us begin. Our Keynotes Pitch is provided by the EU Commissioner for Transport, Adina Vălean. We are very grateful that Adina Vălean pre-recorded a speech and will address us some words. We will play this video in a few seconds. Adina Vălean.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for inviting me to open the International Road Transport Union's annual flagship event. I'm happy to contribute to the discussion on how transport data can connect the road transport industry. Our transport system is in the midst of a transformation. New technologies, economic and societal developments, and a changing climate are creating a seismic shift in the way Europe moves people and goods. I want to see this shift make road transport greener, safer, and more fair. With the coronavirus crisis, we realize that greater sustainability and digitalization will also strengthen the resilience of the sector. Digitalization is not only a key enabler for resilience, it also answers the challenges such as interoperability, efficiency, sustainability, security, and last but not least, safety, by decreasing road fatalities. We have a powerful weapon in this campaign: data. Interconnectivity is key for better use of infrastructures and resources, thereby increases efficiency and lowers costs. But the sharing of data must work both ways. Those who generate data, including transport operators, passengers and drivers, must be able to benefit from sharing this information with those who make use of it. Digitalization and data management will also feature heavily in our strategy on smart and sustainable mobility, which I will present before the end of the year. We know that both are key to modernizing the entire transport and mobility system, while data really are key to the creation of a plug-and-play transport ecosystems in which people and goods can move from A to B in a seamless, most comfortable, efficient, and environmentally friendly way. The technology is not a problem. It is the governance of data which is a challenge. Many standards have been created for data exchange, but mistrust of data use remains high. I understand the transport sector's concerns about an open data space and, in particular, the lack of data interoperability and lack of safeguards for data sharing. The digitalization of transport must ensure fair rights and obligations for those who generate data and those who use them. On one side, we have transport companies, the majority of which are small and medium-sized enterprises. Users, meanwhile, are dominated by large, high-tech IT companies. Ensuring fairness is where policy comes in. It is the EU's job to set up the rules of the game in general, and this is what we are doing. Anything beyond should be driven by innovation. In February this year, the Commission adopted the European Strategy for Data. The strategy envisages the creation of EU-wide interoperable data spaces in strategic sectors, including a common European mobility data space. This data space will facilitate access, pooling, and the safe sharing of data from existing and future transport and mobility databases. The space will include data sharing tools, platforms, and will build data governance frameworks while ensuring the quality and interoperability of data. The framework will serve as a compass for direction, but will not map out turn-by-turn instructions. If I could select just one priority as we move forwards with digitalization, I would choose trust. And there's one clear way to build trust: ensuring that data sharing is easy, secure, and fair for all transport and mobility ecosystem actors. This conference will certainly help build that trust. Thank you for your participation, and I wish you a fruitful debate.
We thank Commissioner Vălean for this powerful speech. And now that the Commissioner nicely set the stage, I would like to turn to the audience and would really like to know how you feel about data, transport, and coronavirus. We will now launch the first polling question. And the polling question, it's time to vote. The polling question is, you will see it on your screen, will the COVID-19 crisis accelerate or slow down digitalization efforts in the transport, logistics, and mobility sector? Accelerate, no change, slow down, I don't know. So please pick your answer and then do not forget to click the submit button. We are almost close to the end. Okay, we close the poll and soon we'll see the results. We see that 80% of the participants consider that the coronavirus crisis will accelerate and not slow down digitalization. 7% of the participants consider that it will slow down, 6% that there will be no change, and 3% do not know. So an impressive 80% consider that this will have the effect of even further acceleration. Now that we saw how the audience thinks about it, I am now turning again to the panel members. We have today a panel which is composed of 5 panelists. 3 panelists represent the industry. They are representatives of companies, and 2 of them, 2 panel members, they represent the EU decision makers. I will start with the decision makers, and I am now looking at digitally looking at Daniel Mas. Daniel Mas is a member of the Vice President of the European Commission Timmermans cabinet, and where he is responsible for transport and digitalization. A lawyer by training, Daniel held various positions at the European Commission around competition, transport, and digital technology files. Daniel, the first thing I would like to ask you is, how did you vote? Did you vote? You can say no. You are muted. You need to unmute yourself.
I voted accelerate.
Accelerate. Okay, good.
Then, yeah. So I was in the club of the winners.
Exactly. And because you voted accelerate, which is not surprising, actually, given the Commission's and the EU's ambitions, open ambitions, I would like to ask you exactly that. So where is the Commission with the digitalization? We already heard from the Commissioner for Transport of some plans in the transportation field, but you come from a cross-economy perspective as member of the Cabinet of Franz Timmermans. So what are the Commission's plans? And more specifically, because we are transport operators today here at the table, how do you see our role at the table in these discussions?
Yeah, thank you very much for also the invitation. And I also think that the opening speech of our Transport Commissioner, Vălean, was really on the spot. So I will get to that, why I believe that was really on the spot. I'm also not surprised by the result ultimately that so many people say the digitization in transport will accelerate. Of course, that's also a sign of confidence in the signal that we are giving at the European Commission at the highest level, that we want the economic recovery that we want to see across the board to be green and digital. So that is already a signal that things should accelerate, because that's also what the Commission is aiming for. But I also think that that is something that shows how we all experience this horrendous crisis for the mobility sector. If you like things moving around, I'm one of them, then this is a horrendous crisis. But one thing that we've learned is that for the next one, we need to be prepared and we need to know things and we need to be smarter, and digital really comes in. So I'm really not surprised by the result that people say after this crisis, digital will become more important. And that is really, I share the Commissioner's ambition to, there's a reason why our mobility strategy is called Sustainable Smart Mobility Strategy. It's when it comes to us, two sides of the same coin. In any event, like smart transport systems allow you to predict traffic and are good to reduce congestion, something that nobody of us likes. The judges are still to be out, how it results in reducing emissions. That's always a bit of a complex question, but in any event, it helps to find optimal speed and driving behavior. So less stopping and going. That would be good for CO2 emission reductions if you find the right speed for that. I think it's also important for climate adaptation, because data can allow you to see when a bridge needs repairing because of excess heat, and it allows the system to become really multimodal. I'm really personally inspired by projects where you see that with harnessing data in ports, for instance, you can see this terminal right now is congested, so let's use a truck at the other terminal, or a train at the third terminal, or a boat at the fourth one. I think that is really amazing. I think that the Commissioner put the finger at the right spot when she said, because I would agree that when it comes to harnessing data sharing in the mobility sector, the technology is not so much the issue. That's something that we can overcome. Also, the use of public data is something that we can overcome. I think that she put the finger at the right spot. That trust is the thing that we should work on and really focus on. Our ambition in that sense is also clear. When we have our plans for common data spaces, so safe environments where people can share data to do the things, for example, the things that I just mentioned, that we are looking for an alternative to the world that we have now. We're looking for an alternative to a world that is to markets that are dominated by big tech platforms. We're looking for something that's, in the words of the Commissioner, that is data sharing that benefits all. And we are thinking in the direction that whoever is a go-between between the data holder and the data user must be must guarantee neutrality. So to be independent of any market player, to avoid that the common data space ultimately results in more market power within that data space. And yeah, your role at the table of the mobility sector, that's actually the reason why I'm really here, because I just really want to hear from you and the audience what you think of this. I take that extremely seriously, to listen to what the experiences of people in data sharing, what we should look out for. That is the aim for this. But I do agree with the Transport Commissioner that to the extent we can, we must harness the potential of data that is now at our hands.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and that's very encouraging that you also mentioned the word trust, which is very important, and that you agree with the, again, from the cross-economic perspective, you agree on the message which was transmitted by the Commissioner for the Transport sector. And now, before I move to an industry representative, I would like to look again at the audience. We would really like to have this event interactive. You have the chat box, please use it. Also, when the speakers talk, use the chat box and place comments or your questions. State your name and the company or organization to which you belong. So now I'm looking at Claire Martin. Claire Martin is Keolis Executive Director and a member of the Executive Committee of Keolis. Claire is responsible for leading the group's industrial strategy. Keolis is a multinational transportation company that operates all types of transport systems, including public transport, coach transport, and taxis. Claire, can I guess how you voted?
Yeah, I am also part. Good afternoon first to all of you. I am also part of the 80% who think that for sure COVID was accelerating the movement. As you said, we are a private company operating public transportation in cities, large cities, mid-cities, or also intercity with train, metro, tram, bus, coaches, etc. As you said, actually, our way to be in this movement of acceleration is first taking into account our customers, the passengers of our transportation systems. As Commissioner Vălean said, the word trust. We also have to restore trust in public transportation for our passengers, because there is obviously a kind of fear towards transportation, public transportation, because people are fearing that social distancing is not possible in public transportation. But we have many surveys who demonstrate that in many of the 16 countries in which we are operating, the public transportation are not a place where where there is a dissemination of the COVID. First, but this is something on which we need to reassure regularly all the passengers. So one of the actions that we had to make is really to demonstrate regularly that public transportation are not only comfortable place but safe place to be. And we have for this developed several applications where we can in real time consider how many people are in the public transportation in order for and give this information to our passenger to allow them to choose whether or not they will enter in a bus or in the next one, for instance. So this is a very, very concrete solution proposed in some of our networks. The second thing is that thanks to digitalization and data exploitation, we are able to anticipate the evolution of behaviors of our passengers, because we have observed a lot of changes in the habits of a lot of people who all of a sudden decided to walk a little bit more, or even significantly more, or to prefer a bike for a part of their ride, or multi-mode transportation, as it was mentioned before. So having a deep knowledge, thanks to the data, on all these kind of behaviors that we are able to observe, because we are able to follow for instance, GPS tracks. In this case, we are able to better anticipate the level of service that we can offer to the public, and also, again, to inform in real time our passengers. There is an additional point that I wanted to mention, because we have a lot of people who are connected, or passengers who are connected, who have their smartphone. But we have also to consider, in an inclusive transportation system, as we pretend to be and as we are, we have also to consider people who are not connected, who are not at ease with all the digital tools. And we also have to take them into account, because there are a significant proportion of the people using the public transportation. So this is those are a couple of examples on the passenger side. But we also have to consider our employees, all our employees, white-collar work, and also drivers of our buses, of metro, etc. And we have also, with these people, observed a very clear acceleration, and thanks to the good tools that we were able to deploy, we were able, for those who can work remotely, for instance, and it was overnight, or almost overnight, and this is something which was very much valued by our employees. So this was an acceleration, and our estimation, if you need to recap one figure, we estimate that we have won about 18 months in the deployment of digital solutions towards our employees that will accelerate also the way and deeply change the way we work. So that's what I would say in a short.
It's of course not surprising that you placed a lot of emphasis on digitalizing the role of data for passenger transport. I am now looking at transport for goods. So to see the complementary perspective of the other side of commercial road transport. Luis Gomez is the president of XPO's Transportation Business Unit in Europe. XPO is a top 10 global logistics provider with two main segments, transport and logistics. It has physical assets in 30 countries worldwide, with approximately 100,000 employees worldwide, of which 50,000 in Europe. The company has a great focus on tech and innovation, with more than $500 million yearly investment in innovation and a global team of more than 1,700 IT professionals, including big data analysts. So, Luis, I must say that's quite impressive for a transport company. I'm very sure I won't ask you about how you voted, because it's for sure accelerate. So the floor is now with you, Luis. So how important is data for XPO?
Thanks, Dracula. Yeah, I mean, it was accelerated, so it was not a difficult answer. But thanks, first of all, Dracula and the IRU organization, first for the invitation, but also for the initiative of this online conference. I think is very, very important for the transport, for the road transport in general, but in this particular case for the road freight. So data and digitalization is not just important for our sector, it's really transforming our road freight transportation sector nowadays. So we are at the era of digitalization. So all sectors are impacted. I mean, even look at today. You know, we are in a conference call that without digitalization it was not possible. For sure, for the transport is very important. I mean, for XPO, you have already said the figures. I mean, significant amount of investment. But why we do all of that? We do all of that because we wanted to improve 4 key pillars for us and for the community. And the first one is the sustainability, and I will explain that later. But the second one is safety, third one is service, and the fourth one is cost optimization. I will define that these 4 pillars are strongly impacted, positively impacted by data and digitalization. Think about sustainability. So our assets are underutilized. I'm not speaking about the XPO. I mean, in general, in our transport sector in Europe, I taken some information from the PPMC, I mean, the Paris Process Mobility Climate, they concluded that 25% of the miles that the trucks are running in Europe are empty miles. So it's a huge opportunity, thanks to the data and the digitalization platforms, to optimize this movement. Thinking about safety, I mean, we are currently in all our trucks digitalized monitoring our behavior, the behavior of our drivers, where we can correct it, improve, giving training, and at the end of the day, that will impact the safety for not only for our employees, also for the global community. I mean, service to our customers, but even more importantly to the final consumers. Nowadays, the real time and visibility of when the goods, where are the goods and where they are arriving on time or not, or even replanning, is a key element of our service offer. And finally, and complementary to all of them, is the cost optimization. The road transport, freight transport sector, sustainability, safety are totally aligned with cost optimization. So big data to predict volumes, to predict how much capacity we need, algorithms to allocate the right means to the right services that are giving us a clear move on this cost optimization. Just taking the coronavirus situation, technology play a very, very significant role. So we launched our platform XPO Connect at the beginning of March, and thanks to that, we were able to keep constantly connections with our customers, with our carriers, through our drivers, and then finally to our consumer. We strongly believe that technology is transforming and will transform even more our logistics. All this investment that you have defined before, 500 million euros a year, having 1,700 IT dedicated employees, they are focusing on 3 key areas of technology: data science and machine learning. We call it that internally XPO Smart. Data science and machine learning will help us to analyze the customer peak, to analyze the labor inventory management with business intelligence and analytics model that will help us on this optimization. The second area of investment in technology is more about distribution center automation. Robots, improve speed, improve accuracy, and also safety in our sites. And finally, a more focus on transportation is the automating transportation. In XPO Connect is our platform where we have the big data and advanced analytics to offer real-time visibility of our transport, good transport to our customers. We have more than 16,000 carriers already connected and more than 3,500 customers. And this platform really helps us to optimize the flows, to allocate the right resources, definitely to improve our service, sustainability, safety, and cost optimization. That's what I wanted to conclude. I would like to say that all this investment, all this area of improvements with data and technology, we won't be able to really progress.
Thank you very much, Luis. And now that we heard 2 industry representatives, before moving to the technology side of it, like pure technology part of the industry, I would like to look again at the EU decision makers. We have Alex Saliba as well with us today. Alex Saliba is a Maltese politician who was elected as a member of the European Parliament in 2019, and he is now part of the SNG group in the European Parliament. Alex was appointed rapporteur of the Digital Service Act by the Internal Market and Customer Protection Committee within the European Parliament. This is a crucial file for the future of digitalization and platforms, and this is of course strictly interconnected with data. Alex, we are happy to have you here today. Also, we know that today is a historical moment for you and the Digital Service Act file in the Parliament, because you have a vote in the plenary later today. So very grateful to have you here, and we would like to ask you, what is the Parliament doing on these files right now? What's the Parliament vision? What is your vision? And where do you see the role of transport operators in these cross-economy discussions? Alex?
So first of all, thanks for your introduction. As you rightly pointed out, today it's a historical day, not for myself, I think, for the European Parliament, for the European Union as a whole, since right now, when you introduced me, exactly, we heard the bell signaling the big process, the first voting process on the DSA, on the amendments and split votes for the three committee reports that we are discussing and voting upon in this plenary session. So IRU were very timely, to say the least, to organize this conference today and at this particular time when the Parliament is basically adopting, deciding and formulating its official position to be given to the Commission on the eve of the presentation by the Commission of its Digital Services Act recommendations. The development of computing, big data, and also the digitalization have made the basically discussions of the DSA strategic also for the transport sector. As you know, the DSA IMCO report deals with two separate issues, which are the revision of the 20-year-old e-commerce directive and also for the very first time, the moving forward and giving birth for the ex-ante internal market instrument in the digital sector, which has to work in tandem next also to traditional competition law. The report basically sets the internal market and consumer protection priorities on how digital services, including online platforms in the transport sector, how they should be regulated in the coming future, in the next 10, 15, 20 years. All of these measures that we are proposing today will have direct and also indirect impact also on the transport sector. For example, the e-commerce directive is one of the essential pieces of union legislation and also a founding block for the digital single market. And we cannot ignore the role played by e-commerce directive in the development of the transport platforms in the European digital single market. The framework in the e-commerce directive, however, predates the digital economy era and does not reflect technical, economic, labor, and social reality of today's online services in the transport sector, and therefore it definitely needs an update. The Digital Services Act will be the first update to the legal framework on online services introduced 20 years ago, and despite that, the increased digitalization of transport sector has had many positive effects, which will definitely need to improve to also increase more the consumer trust in the sector. In light also of this, future measures must be designed in such a way as to facilitate technological development rather than hampering it. At some time, also promoting competition on equal terms and also safeguarding our users, our consumers, and also our workers' rights. The absence of clear, transparent, and up-to-date rules in this sector has resulted in some cases of market fragmentation, insecurity, and unjustified barriers, especially for the newcomers, which are entering in the market, which are eyeing also to scale up in the field of mobility. And some of these measures in the DSA report will directly address these barriers. For example, I'm going to mention some of the most important elements which I think will be beneficial for this sector. The Know Your Business Customer provisions, for example, these will set a uniform obligation for transport platforms to verify the identity of service providers and also to ensure that information that service providers provide is up to date, and to also take measures against fraudulent companies in order to create and maintain a safe environment, and also to create and strengthen the legal certainty for users and also public authorities. This requirement has been there under Article 5 of the current e-commerce directive, but the verification element was totally missing. And this is basically, in a nutshell, what we are strengthening by the Know Your Business customer provision. We are also moving forward a European notice and action mechanism, a harmonized one which will do away with patchwork being done and different initiatives being undertaken by different member states, which is hampering basically our digital single market, because it's creating different rules, confusion for the operators and uncertainty for both users and also the operators. And we will be giving clarity for the digital services, including again the transport sector, and also the need to adjust to specificities in particular sectors. The section on enforcement and also effective implementation are of particular importance for the transport platform market, which require a sector-specific approach and also special attention in this matter. The ex-ante rules from the report will help and pay particular attention to the situation of SMEs, as I have already stated, that face unjustified barriers from big players, and basically these unjustified barriers are not creating a contestable market, a contestable digital ecosystem. Despite that most of these measures that we are proposing will have an impact on the transport sector, we also need to acknowledge the very specific nature of the content of transport platforms compared to other digital service providers, to other digital sectors, which in some instances it is required to be compliant with precise criteria also at national level. Therefore, sector-specific EU coordinated effort, and I'm going to conclude on this, also needs to be strengthened in this sector more than in other areas. Last but not least, in the transport market, the DSA should aim at ensuring legal certainty and clarity by creating future-proofed framework for the removal of these barriers.
Thank you very much, Alex. We heard a lot of keywords which are very appealing to us, let's say. But you will have also the opportunity in the next section to give us more insights where we talk about the benefits or benefits as such for granted or under conditions. So you'll have the opportunity also to provide the insights there. Now I see that there is also an increasing number of questions that we receive. May I ask you again, when you ask a question, to state also not only your name but the organization or company which is your employer. We'll take the questions in 1 minute, and now I would just like to introduce Ralf Peter Schäfer, who is our next panelist. Ralf Peter is the head of TomTom's Traffic and Travel Information Product Unit. Ralf Peter has an impressive 20 years experience in research and development of content and products enabling car-centric traffic sensing and service delivery using vehicle data. So Ralf Peter is a data expert, and happy to have you here today. How do you see digitalization, Ralf Peter?
Yeah, at first, thanks for the invite, being here. Great pleasure. And I can tell data is my life for the last 20 years. And I made a big journey in research and last 15 years with TomTom to build technology on big data lakes, which is today reality in the transportation sector. So companies like TomTom dealing for years with big data, with probe data under privacy protection. It is a big thing to develop and enable technology to help drivers to move safe, comfortable, and fast from A to B. TomTom was the first to revolutionize the navigation ecosystem from 2005 to 2004 and made the navigation systems connected as an ecosystem where you can share data at the benefit of giving feedback how to move fast and safe from A to B. And then we made a journey to enable more and more services where we can predict transportation, travel time, speed, even lately traffic demand, all disciplines of traffic management and navigation, which are growingly important to understand traffic, but also fight congestion. That's a big thing here, right? We want to reduce CO2 emission. We want to reduce congestion. We are going in a revolution now of the change of the mobility ecosystem, more multimodal. The cities want to more and more give space back to people and less cars. And that is where big data play an essential role. And companies like TomTom will contribute here and contributing with data sets to compare the situation in cities, like we disclose every year the congestion index for 500 cities nearly these days, and do it every year again to have really a status quo analysis where we stand today and where's change happening to the positive, but also where are cities lacking to fight congestion in the right way. So the traffic management will change as well, and again, big data will play a role here. And I think that's also good for this debate here to make it the right spot to use data in the right way, in a transparent way, but also protect privacy, which is really important for people as well. I'm happy to have a debate here on what are the chances on the technology, but also what we have to ensure to provide fair competition rules, that competition is used to create better technology as a profit for people and countries.
Thank you very much, Ralph Peter. And when I look now at the questions that we receive in the chat box, I see that they, let's say, the questions or the comments received already anticipate the future discussion. So I'll just pick some of them. We have from Alexander Klashka, from Klashka Freight Group, and also representing IRU. We see that the question is that there is a concern on the winner takes it all, meaning that data collection is expensive and a big barrier for smaller transport companies to participate can be seen. And also Alex is raising the issue of business being prepared, but governments being less prepared to embrace data and technology. I think that also hints to the business to government part of the data flow. And then we have something which will come again in discussion later from Bruno Launois. As data is power, how not to be frightened by data collection? But perhaps that we will pick because it's part of our future discussions. And a very specific question from Luis. This is from Claude Yvan. Can you give an example of how data can help reduce empty miles in an asset-based company like XPO?
Did you want to cover this last one?
Yeah, because the rest we will pick it.
Okay, that's perfect. No, that's perfect. So no, thanks for the question. I mean, very interesting. Currently, what we are having in our market digital map is all the positions of our loading, all the positions of all our carriers, and also our drivers. So the algorithm is looking when and where are you going to unload tomorrow, at what time, when the load more available for you is closer to your position, and the system is allow you to offer the 2, 3, or 4 best options for you to minimize the empty miles. This is a quick example of how the system is working. So it's basically predicting when and where you will be, and taking also our information about all the loads available and doing the matching. That's a quick example to how to reduce empty miles.
Thank you very much, Luis. We keep receiving questions, and we would really like to answer to as many questions as possible in order to be interactive. And we will take more questions also at the end if time allows, at the end of this session. But now we would like to to deep dive further into the benefits of data sharing and look again at the audience. I would like to hear first how the audience feels about the benefits of data sharing, and then look again at the panel members. So the next polling question, it's time again to vote, and the next polling question is, will data sharing bring benefits for transport operators? Yes. Yes, under some conditions. No. Or not sure. So please, you can pick first your answer by ticking the box that you consider to be the right answer, and then click do not forget to click the submit button, otherwise we won't see your replies. So the polling is now closed, and we will see the results soon. We see that 55% of the participants consider that yes, data sharing can bring benefits to operators, but under some conditions, to be further discussed also by panel members. Then 37% consider that yes, they will bring benefits without any other caveat. 2% are not sure, and 1% consider they won't bring any benefits. So we have a clear majority of participants who consider that they will bring, data sharing will bring benefits under some conditions. So I am now looking again at the panel members, and I will first like to ask perhaps Claire, because we have Louise now. I'm looking at the industry representative again, passenger transport. Claire, are you surprised about this answer, about this majority? And what is your view on the question? How did you vote?
Actually, I'm not surprised by the results, and it happened that I was in the 55% who voted yes under certain conditions. Let me explain. When I explained a little earlier how we operate, I was mentioning two stakeholders, the passengers and our employees, but there is another stakeholder which is very important, in that as an operator, we work for public transport authorities. And so we are partnering with public transport authorities who delegate to us the operations of the public transportation system. So the first element is that the value of data, the benefit of data, is, in our view, the way you use it. The most important is not data as such, is the way you use, the way you exploit data. It happens that as an operator, we are both using data that are provided by others, and we are generators of data. For instance, we have all the data coming from ticketing, all the data coming from all the passenger information system that we provide and that bring us data also, as well as the data coming from the vehicles that we are operating. And it's very important that our second principle, which is important, is that we consider that sharing data, if it is for the common good, if it's for the benefit of the community, in this case, we are absolutely in favor to share this, because the maximum of users of those data available for all, to provide the best quality of service for the city at large, and for every single passenger and every user of the public space, which is the city, is something that we value. But we are also conscious that there are some competitive advantage in better using the data that we're able to use. So the conditions that we consider is really the give and take approach, or the reciprocity principle that I would like also to add, because we all know that there are good and bad ways to use the data, to exploit the data. And as Ralph was explaining the traffic management, for instance, the way you as a traffic manager, you can close some roads because there is a congestion somewhere, or because you want to protect an area because there are children going to school in this place and you want to avoid a lot of cars or buses arriving in these areas. This is a very simple example to understand. This is a good way to manage this kind of public data, as an example. And there are other examples that I could use, but perhaps in a second row. But basically, sharing, yes, under the condition of reciprocity, and sharing for the common goods, because it must be a benefit for the community.
Thank you very much, Claire, for this thoughtful consideration. I am now looking at Alex and like to hear again the EU legislators' view on this. So did you vote, Alex? How did you vote?
Yes, I did, and I was also with the majority, with the 55%,
yes.
Because I believe that it is important to have data sharing in accordance with a number of principles, in accordance with a number of safeguards, non-personal data sharing between platforms and between platforms, and also national, regional, and also local authorities, aiming especially at sharing best practices and also establishing a set of information obligations of mobility platforms is a key. It is key that we have also the Commission, and this is also reflected in the Commission's agreement with certain platforms that has already been reached, for example, with the short-term rental sector, an agreement which was reached in March 2020. And this agreement, I believe, is a step in the right direction to enable local authorities, first of all, to better understand the development of collaborative economy, and also something which will allow for reliable and continuous data sharing and evidence-based also policy making. Further steps are also needed to initiate also a more comprehensive data sharing framework for mobility platforms as well. We need to, first of all, establish an obligation for systemic platforms to share data accordingly, and this will definitely help to create a more contestable environment, a more competitive environment that will basically give access to data to SMEs in the transport sector. The data access, data portability, and also the transparent data governance is also key for the mobility platform economy. And without it, local governments have problems in enforcing and also developing practices in the field of transport and tourism, as well as also in creating new innovative services that basically contribute positively to EU increase in competitiveness. Some of data is also strategic for public good, and therefore I welcome the Commission's communication from the European Commission on European data strategy, in particular the development of common European data spaces and strategic areas such as transport and also mobility. All these measures, however, and this is of fundamental importance to us, need to respect data privacy rules when using and also when processing data, which has to be done in accordance to European values.
Thank you very much, Alex. And I am now looking at Ralph Petter and like to hear the perspective of TomTom.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and TomTom as well, of data sharing, because sharing of data, is my experience, leads to competition on better products, driving technology advances, and that's de facto a positive thing. It further stimulates collaboration models, right? And this is also good to drive a driver for change. On the other hand, anything what is preventing or it's preventing, or it's in the direction of exclusive data access or discriminatory access should be prevented, right? Because that is what creates big monopolists and in the end hold back technology advances in a broader sense. So we are in TomTom, we looking in different sectors, and we are dependent on data. That's our ground or fuel for technology advances. And there are many examples how collaboration can be even in sectors where still competition is ongoing, like traffic management, right? There's an ecosystem of infrastructure, data, and creating an own ecosystem. And there is a technology sector for navigation where we are in. But if you would combine both assets and drive a collaborative model for traffic management, you can achieve more together than competing, right? And that is also the foundation here is data sharing and stimulate collaboration between stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Ralph Peter. I'm now looking at Luis because we heard from Claire some prerequisites of a successful data sharing of economy, and Claire mentioned reciprocity and sharing for the common good. We also heard from Alex that transparent data governance and portability of data are just some examples of principles which should be applied. And we also heard from Ralph Peter that there is also on the other hand. So even a technology company looks at the other hand and attaches some conditions to that. So what's your perspective, Luis?
Thanks. So I'm really aligned with what I heard from the other panelists, from Claire and Alex. So for sure, definitively yes, but definitively also under certain conditions. So clearly, for me, the data sharing is a must to have, but obviously we need to have a clear regulations. Reciprocity, as Claire said, is very, very important. Even sometimes in putting in an anonymized way, it will be good for the market sector in general to have database of movement of flows, capacity needs, etc., that can be accessed to any transport company, obviously in respecting all the data privacy in an anonymous way, etc. So this reciprocity is a very key factor for us. I mean, our position as XPO, I think, is data sharing. We are focused on three segments. So one is with our customers and our final consumers. I mean, this information, this real-time visibility is very important for them. It's a value added that we can do, but we can get the benefit also. And what's our benefit? For example, just pick up a clear example. In terms of the invoicing, e-documents, e-billings, e-PODs, this will help us in order to optimize our administration tax. This will help us also to receive the cash from our invoices quicker. So I think this is a clear example where moving data in a digital way, it can be a strong benefit for us. Also with our carriers. What I mentioned before, someone said in the questions that the data or leading the data could be very expensive. I will say that leading digitalization is a big investment. That's true. So not all companies can lead and produce, you know, the investment that we need to do to improve on that. But all companies can have access to this data. So that's a bit different. It's a bit like internet, you know, leading the platforms on the servers, etc. is a big investment. Using internet is not at all. And I think that's the goal. The goal is that the community, in this case, our transport freight community, can get access to this data. There is a lot of companies, small hauliers companies that are connecting with us. And during, for example, the COVID period, we move information to them, saying to them where they can stop to have a sandwich, where they can even to have facilities, because most of them were closed. So we, thanks to the data and the digital communications, we facilitate the free movement of the goods during the pandemic. So all of us were at home, but there was a lot of people on road, and And just wanted to thanks to all the community of hauliers that were working without stopping, for giving all the products to all of us. So I think that's important for the customers, also for the carriers, and finally also for the sector in general. So I'm really like the topic about reciprocity. So I think in the US, for example, they are much more in advance on this reciprocity. There is database where in an anonymous way you can have access, and it doesn't matter if you're a small company or a big player, you can have access to this information and replanify your capacity, allocate your capacity depending on where the needs are. So definitely for me, data sharing is a real benefit.
Thank you very much. And now, Daniel, the advantage of being in this part of the discussion, the last one, is that you can capitalize on the insights from all the other speakers. So now the floor is with you. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, that's indeed true, and I'm very grateful that I was now at the end instead of in the beginning. No, but I think that what I capture also from this is that two things are really, really key. That the one who shares the data should also feel that they get something back for that data, so that they get a benefit back. So I think we should move to a system where somebody doesn't only feel like a data subject or a data generator, but feels empowered that they're getting something back for the data. And there are lots of things that people in the mobility system can get back from sharing their data. Some of it was already mentioned, like roads that can be closed down if you have an overview of the traffic, but also just basic, real-time traffic avoidance. So information that allows you to avoid traffic. According to calculations, can save 730 million working hours, 20 billion euros in labor costs. But those are the costs of to a large extent of you, the mobile operators in the system, the people who are transporting the goods, your truckers. These are we're talking about them now. That information allows them to work in a more efficient way, and ultimately your company. Another major benefit that you get if you feel entrusted that you can share the data is that you are findable, and that's that's a benefit in this world nowadays. As well, if you look at the passenger side, it is a fact that if I want to book something online and I want to travel from city A to B, I get first in my hit list 70 options for cheap flights. And if I'm lucky, I get a train somewhere down. And if I want to do door-to-door travel, I need to really locate 70 different websites to find how I can get door-to-door by using public transport or something else. So being findable is one of the main benefits of data sharing too, which is really one key that we really want to look at. Also, when we look at what we want to do in the passenger transport in the multimodal world, the multimodal information that everybody can, everybody has a chance to be found, so to say, and to really compete with the services that are out there. But all of that, of course, only works if people, again, and I'm coming back to it, but it is really a fundamental point. It comes back to the trust and confidence. And just to make clear, when I was speaking before in my introduction, because Alex is also there, our rapporteur on the Digital Services Act, that's one part of the puzzle, which sort of how do we tackle the current powerful platforms and make sure that they do it in a fair way. I was talking about the Governance Act, which is also coming, which is supposed to set out the ground rules for how you organize a common data space. And this common data space is supposed to function a bit in a way that Mr. Gomez explained, and that it really is ideally a safe environment where people, big and small, can chip in, share the data, and get something back in return. And for that, we're really looking for an alternative to the world that we have. Not another common data space that is, again, a monopoly of somebody else, so that, again, you only become a data generator and you don't get anything in return. We're looking for arrangements that make sure that you feel empowered, that you get something back too, so that the benefits spread evenly. So we're really thinking about ways that if you have a common data space like that, how can you make sure that the one who is the interface, the intermediary between the ones who are giving the data and the ones who are getting it to use it, is truly neutral, doesn't use the data to compete itself with your own services, so that you feel entrusted to do it. Because this is not only a fact, that only the transport operators are facing. This is just a basic human thing. Also, what we do in friendships, we do friendships when we share, and we have the feeling that sometimes, once in a while, we also get something back that benefits us. And that is what we want to do with these common data space. So to create this alternative, dare I say, this European way of doing things, to allow people to share the data in that safe environment, get something in return, and not have to face risks of powerful people or new powerful people that use it to their own gain.
Thank you, Daniel. You mentioned some key principle which goes again into Alex's work, which is being findable, because sharing your data doesn't mean necessarily that you will be findable, and ranking criteria and things like that are probably aspects that Alex is dealing with when looking at platforms. But now I'm just looking at the questions, because we received quite a number of questions, and many of the questions or even comments point out to one thing. And we have Isabelle Maître from the French Trade Federation, FNTR. We have also, again, Bruno Launois from Eurovac. And then we have also Alfredo, before Alfredo, we have Sven, Daniel, probably you're the expert here, to Verfecken, if I pronounce it correctly. That's all of these point at one thing: how can small and medium-sized companies reap the benefits of a data economy? And there is a reminder in all these questions that our sector, and that has to be said, is dominated by small and medium-sized enterprises. We have between 900,000 and 1 million transport operators in passenger transport and transport of goods in the European Union. And like 90% of these are small and medium-sized enterprises. So the question is, a company of 5 trucks or 5 coaches, how can they be enabled to make use of this data? So anybody who wants to step in? Who is the first?
I can vote as well.
Okay, Luis and then Daniel. Yeah. Okay.
No, but that's a very important question, and I understand. I mean, we are a member of FNTR and most of these associations, and obviously the profile of the typical freight transport is not company with 6,000 trucks or more. I mean, it's, as you said, a small number of fleet. As I said before, I think data and access to data, it shouldn't be expensive. I mean, create a big platform and a digital platform, that can be a significant investment. But so obviously companies that have 2 or 4 trucks won't be able to create that, but they are able to connect with platforms that gave them the access to these benefits. And the access could be either generic in terms of think about the GPS in the car, so just to have the access in order to avoid limitation of traffic, so optimization of their flows, things like that, or even in a more industrial way. I mean, we are working with as I said before, with 15,000 carriers that are currently connected, and they are sharing their information, and we are sharing with them our information of loads, and they are capable with their app. It's called Drive XPO, and they can choose and they can say, oh, I'm interested on this, I'm interested on that. This is good for me because I maybe need to go to, I don't know, to Italy or whatever. And then they connect it to us, and they have access to this information, and to have access to that is free. I mean, obviously, I'm speaking about a transactional business for XPO. It could be others, but this is more for the transactional business. But on top of that, in terms of services availability, traffic congestion, etc., there is a lot of platforms that are free, and these small companies can take benefit of.
Daniel?
Yeah, I think that is a very important question. That's of course very much a real life issue. Can you expect from a family company that has a few trucks or sales on one barge, together with the family on the inland waterways, can you expect them to take all their data consent forms and do all of that? And I think that we have to have, as a commission, we have to have a close look at that. You see a bit of the development when we talked about individuals of so-called data unions or data cooperatives, where people can be there to help smaller entities to explain them what type of consent they're giving, to help them share their data in a beneficial way. And it's something that we really definitely need to look at, because this is the reason why we're doing this revolution, that also the smaller players can play a part of this. That's exactly it. And also the data use aside, you have the same situation. What I meant with people being findable is I think that there is really a clear in the passenger field a clear need for passengers, a clear want for multimodal tickets. They want to be able to travel door to door and put in the destination and find the different modes. What they're currently just not finding is, for instance, the rail lag. So that is a market failure that we're seeing. That something needs to be done about that, because that allows also players. The rail operators are not typically very small, but it does allow this type of thing, the smaller players, to be part of something bigger. Also, an entity that sells things in a multimodal way, and to get more business from that. I think that's really the key word again. Is we need to empower people to have the feeling that they are a data giver and they get something back for it.
I can maybe add a concrete example from TomTom. Years ago, we bought a company for fleet management, very small at that time, 15 years ago, and we built a community of connected cars, mainly trucks, and in a small, medium-sized enterprises, typically 5 to 15 vehicles were part of the company. And the sharing of data, we created a fleet tracking and tracing system, and over time added more and more services for this community, which grows significantly. So what started really small, this data sharing became a big ecosystem of business, where on really small prices for those small companies could be part of this community and benefit from the data sharing. What is small for the single company, but big for this community, which is today 1 million vehicles, and we sold this last year to Bridgestone, as you might have seen from the press. So it's a good example how these win-win business models work based on a sharing principle.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph Peter, for the example. Claire, I saw you raising your hand.
Yeah, on SMEs, the question was on the SMEs. I think the very first thing is that SMEs must really understand that there is a large amount of value behind the data. It's a question of knowledge. So we perhaps larger players, we perhaps should showcase where the value is to really help them to understand that the investment, to convince them that the investment can be relatively limited and the reward can be really high. Even more if data are shared, again, for the common goods, they can access pretty easily. They need to have the skills and to change the mindset in which they are operating their business. So that's probably also something that we can put on the table. So this is on the question on SMEs, and I wanted to just to add a small thing on what perhaps I don't know, Daniel said about multimodal, because as you know, Keolis is pretty advanced on multimodal transportation system, which are working pretty well in some cities, like for instance Lyon in France or Dijon in France. This model we really try to export it outside of France or Europe. It's not always very easy, but it's when the PTAs, again, the public transport authorities, are themselves convinced of the benefit that is behind a multimodal approach, where you can have a full door-to-door way with different modes, including what we call the new mobilities, which are much and more used by and valued by the citizen, like biking, for instance, or trottinette, we say in French. We have to consider the entire transportation system, including parking lots outside of the cities, to really restore also a quality of living in the cities. This is at least what we are very favorable in. Thank you.
Thank you. And now another question from David Wells from Logistics UK. Do the panelists see a role for business groups to consolidate the data, anonymize it, and benefit the sector? Partially, it was already probably the example that Ralph Peter provided is illustrative in this sense, but I would also like to hear if any other panel members would like to say so. How can business groups consolidate data, anonymize it, and benefit the sector? Luis?
Yeah. So I don't know if I understood the question well. So is if there is more consolidation of data between the big groups? So that was the question? Or?
Yeah, the business groups to consolidate data, and business groups probably it also means because we have several small ones, not necessarily one group, but how can they group themselves and consolidate data, anonymize it, and benefit the whole sector? So how can this?
I think I got the question. I think at this stage we have a bit far away from this target. So there is other countries. I mean, particularly the US is more in advance of that, as I mentioned before. Now our sharing data is more between our customers and between our carriers, not really in a pool of a community, in an anonymized way that can bring us, all of us, the benefit of knowing demands, volumes, capacity, things like that. I'm really in favor of that. I'm really in favor of this reciprocity. I will be happy to bring our data, obviously, in a protected way. Community is doing that to benefit all of us, in terms of knowing to be better predicted in terms of volumes. So I haven't seen, and maybe I had that more for next part of the conversation, is how technology companies and then more industrial transport companies, how come be together. What we are seeing is more this type of approach where technology companies try to found industrial transport companies in order to somehow to be complementary one of the others. But at this stage, I don't see in Europe that there is a sharing data between different companies somehow in order to, I don't know, in a way that we can take benefit of that. I don't see that yet.
Alex, thank you, Luis. And Alex, I don't want to add something here.
Yes, just one small point on this interesting question. Data minimization and encryption can help a great deal when it comes to sharing, and it comes to also protecting a number of vital internal interests. But also coming to the first discussion that we had on data sharing, the value of data. Data is the new gold. But the question is how much data actually costs. What is it and how much will it be? If data has a cost, who will then have access to it? So it's really important then not to create barriers and have data which is accessible also to our SMEs. And I go again for that point. Since data is basically the fuel of our companies, it's really important that we have more accessibility for all the stakeholders. Another issue that I want to also make reference to, will companies that can afford paying for it have access to data, and then what consequences will there be basically also for markets and for competition in general? Again, for me, data is a public good, and the so-called raw data can serve also important social purposes, and therefore we need a clear legal framework and also an incentivized system to share raw data within the private sector, public institutions, universities for research and cooperation, and this is of fundamental importance if we want to continue to invest in our industries, in our research, between interoperability platforms. Always, and this is of fundamental importance, as I have already said, in conformity with data privacy rules and European public values. We need to promote data exchanges, digitalization, and big data on transport and logistics platforms in the interest of greater efficiency in the same organization and management, use of resources, and also in the use of our infrastructures.
Okay, thank you very much. I was just wondering, reading one of the other questions, and we have to, in the interest of time, we have to move. But we got another question from Sven, and that's exactly what you were saying. Combining the multimodal transport modes, it is still very complicated. But these platforms, they can help that, and services can be better developed and tailored to European multimodal transport of goods. So that's a bit in line with what you were saying. Now, we need to move on, but just a yes or no question to you, the panel members, this time from me. Do you think the current framework, because just to sum up, because we said, and you all agreed, yes, data sharing has benefits under some conditions. So follow-up question. Do you think the current framework, so if we don't change it at all, the current framework is stimulating for operators? And I only need yes or no. So who wants to be first? Shall I call you? Claire. You are muted.
So me again at first.
You first.
The benefit of being a lady, no? I would say, I mean, this is what we're currently doing, so yes.
Okay, so for Keolis, the current framework is already stimulating. Luis?
Definitively yes. Although I don't understand exactly what you refer about under the current, I don't know if you mean regulations or things like that, but clearly my answer is yes. We need to improve probably the security of the data between our interchange, but clearly yes.
Okay, then the Commission shouldn't do anything about it if the framework is already stimulating. Daniel, what do you think? You have to unmute yourself. You are muted. You are muted, Daniel.
Yeah. Oh, sorry for that. Yeah, but I think that Alex and we really want to work on our proposal. So we know there's lots of room for improvement. No, but seriously, like I can understand that some people already have good experiences with it, but like in a world where we see that only 17% of the SMEs are actually sort of like really digital literate in that they have the digital technology to harness their data, i.e. meaning 8 out of 10 SMEs sit on data and are not using it in the right way. To stay with Alex's comparison, if you see that 8 out of 10 SMEs have fuel, well, as the Green Deal, I should say, hydrogen standing on the in their basement, and they can use that hydrogen to power something really powerful, and they're not doing it, that cannot be a satisfactory situation. So I think that there's work to be done.
Yes. Alex?
So I'm going to agree with the Commission on this. I'm not going to be pessimistic and say an outright no, but I think that we should and we must be more ambitious when it comes to our framework on data sharing. So a no, but we can do more in this area.
Yes. This corresponds to the many comments we got on concerns for small and medium-sized enterprises. Ralph, Peter?
Yeah, I think there's certainly good intent. Important is that we avoid discriminatory access to data and exclusive access to data, but is a growing risk, right? We see some big companies, and this would be a bad direction. Sharing of data under a reasonable business model, that is really the crux, that we enable collaboration, what I said already, and stimulate competition for better products. And that is where we stand for. And it could be certainly sharp and also to go in this direction, to go to non-exclusive access to data and non-discriminatory access.
We are now moving to, now that we heard already about the benefits of data sharing, we are going into something very, very pragmatic. And many of the speakers, including you right now, Alex, I think you anticipated this, making reference to the cost of data. That's exactly what we are going to talk about now, the cost and price of data. So I'm turning now again to the audience, and we would like to know first what you think about it. And the polling question number 3 is, does data have value to you and your business? Yes, and I know how to make most out of it. B, yes, but I don't know how to make most out of it. No, and not sure. Again, as with the previous times, please click the right answer for you, and do not forget to click also the submit button. So this is closed now, and we will see the results. Oh, it's quite close. Quite close to the result. We have 45% of very knowledgeable respondents saying that yes, and they also know how to make most out of it. 44% yes, but they don't know how to make most out of it. And then 3% not sure and 1% no. So we have quite a tight answer. Yes, but I don't know. Yes, but I know. So I'm now, now that we know what the audience feels about it, we would also like to know what our panel members think about it. And now, actually also to comment a bit on these results and on this tight answer between people knowing and people not knowing, but acknowledging that there is a lot of potential and value of data. So I am now looking first at not Claire, you heard too many times there. Shall I look at Ralph Petter? Ralph Petter, you are always coming and wrapping up. So now I would like to start.
Yeah, for sure.
You're an expert on that, so.
I hope you can hear me. Yeah, for sure, data have a value, and that is in particular true for a company like TomTom, where we create a lot of different products around data. We're creating maps out of data, keeps them fresh. We're doing a number of services, entering live traffic and tapping in an ecosystem where we can monitor traffic flow, analyze demand, even the change from one mode to a different mode. And this has a value, but also there is a cost involved to create this ecosystem, and that is important. Data have a cost, and sharing doesn't necessarily mean it's free of charge, right? There must be a common business model, and the market typically solve this problem. What we have seen for years now, in particular in the probe data market, where there is a market created by common business models in different communities and different ecosystems, but also a marketplace for sharing of raw data, where there's a price tag involved. And this is good to have healthy companies as well, and operate a company making profit, but also enable growth of technology and end customer value, what we're aiming for. We want to reduce congestion, we want to reduce CO2 footprint, and that is also an enabler, right, to use the data.
Yes, and now I would like to give the floor to Luis.
Thank you. Well, it was interesting the answer, because in fact I put the A, but when I said A, I said, well, but listen, we are again a way to go. So it was I was between the A and the B, and finally I saw that the audience were really split between the two. So well, for sure, I think we all of us has a lot of data, and probably, well, sure, we are not getting 100% of the benefit of all this data, for sure. I mean, it's like when you have an asset, so you are starting to get benefit. So there is some clear benefit that we have already mentioned before about the data that helps you to optimize your business, your routes. I mean, you connected with your customers to fast, giving to them a value-added service, etc. So there is a lot of things that we can do, but there is a lot of things that we can improve. For example, just thinking about pricing. So how we can improve our quality of our pricing. If we know better the market, if we know better the different information that are in the markets, how we can obtain the best optimization of our pricing methodology with algorithms, depending of the time of the year, depending of the offer and demand, depending of about different type of algorithms, depending of the peer pricing approach, where we can see how we can be more competitive or less competitive. There is another topic we take very strongly, which is in tendering process, how we can increase our win rate. So we need to be able to win more business. So our approach is optimal. So clearly with good data, managing that in a proper way, that can help us, to all of us. But for sure, I mean, depending of the investment you do, depending of the advanced you are already in data and digitalization in general, you can get more or less the benefit of that. But what I would like to say is also that it's not just data who is the guarantee of the success, or at least this is not what we believe. So in the transport freight industry, at least what I believe, or we believe, is that it's the combination of this technology investment, data algorithms, but it's very, very important also the business know-how. I mean, the sectoral experience. And that's the reason why we are seeing a lot of times platforms that can have a lot of data, but they are not finally a success because they don't have this business know-how and sectoral experience. In our case, we believe that the key of the success is the combination of the two, is the good use of the data and also the business know-how and sectoral expertise. That's the equation of the success.
Thank you very much, Luis and Claire.
I fully agree with Luis. But before this, actually, I'm not surprised, considering the questions I came from the audience this afternoon. I'm not surprised with this kind of 50-50. But everyone is conscious that data are very valuable and important, but not everyone knows how to use them. And I mentioned earlier that the issue of the knowledge, which is a question, okay, of technologies, having the right technologies for this, but then when you have the data in front of you, how to select them, the right one, the one which are relevant for your activity, your business. And so this business knowledge, as what mentioned by Luis, is very key to really select the data which will be key for, on one hand, better serving your, in our case, your passengers or your PTAs, and on the other hand, improving the competitiveness of your business. And so selecting the right data, structuring them, cleaning them, and then having teams of people who are able to really draw from the data the values that you need. Because the question was around the cost of data. Sometimes it's not very costly, and again, the efficiency can be very high. If you have a system which is safer, which is more efficient, which is he will be cheaper also if you're able to manage it in the right way. And I can give you two examples. One, with a clear benefit behind, is all what when we are providing to our bus drivers or coach drivers eco-driving systems, which are based on data analysis. When they are able to have a feedback on how they drive and how much energy, whatever the energy is, they are using, they will adapt in a kind of positive retraction, and they will improve. And by driving more eco-friendly. It will be more economical. I mean, it will be cheaper for the transportation operator, and it will be better for the planet. So the benefit is double. And there is a significant impact, which is between, depending on the case, between 15% and up to 30% of fuel economy consumption, whether or not the way people drive. And it's a first step is to learn how to drive in an eco-friendly way. And the second step is to maintain it over time. And this is where the big value is. So this is one example. The other example is we are deploying what we call maintenance 4.0, which allows us really through, for instance, application of telediagnosis to make anticipation of failures, to make preventive maintenance, and even predictive maintenance. So three elements are providing economies around between 5 to 10% of our average cost of maintenance. So for freight or for passenger transportation, we know how much maintenance is of a heavy weight on our balance sheet. So there is a clear economy behind this. So yes, there is a cost. You must invest in people and change of ways of working, and then you will have the reward. This is our conviction, at least.
Thank you, Claire. Now, because this was a question mainly targeted at transport operators, so do you know how to make use of it? I have a slightly different question for our legislators today at the table, Alex and Daniel, and that's if data has a cost, and we heard that it has a cost. In some opinions, it can be small. In other opinions, depending on the size of the business, this can be big. Especially we have now the corona, of course, the ambition to move further with digitalization, but at the same time, there are costs. How will businesses be supported to embrace data spaces? We are also talking now about the next generation. That's also a very topical issue, Alex, because the Parliament is talking about the next generation and the 750 billion euros that the EU will give to businesses. So is there any hope for us there? Alex?
So yes, definitely. First of all, I think that the question was a very straightforward one that you made. Does data is data important, and does data have a cost? So definitely yes, and definitely we need to support our businesses. We need to support our businesses to embrace this technology and help them connect more, because as I said and I preempted a bit in my previous remarks, data is the new gold, and it's really important for us to identify this cost and help our business to make the most out of it, because definitely there will be consequences for lack of access of data, and these consequences in the majority of cases are shouldered more by the smallest players in our industries. Therefore, it's really important for us, for legislators, to create the right ecosystem, to create the right conditions and framework so that there is more accessibility for this data. And definitely cost will not be a barrier for all the players, basically.
Daniel?
Yeah, I think actually also the key to this is indeed that people are also willing to make a certain cost if they see that the benefit that they get is big, and that they can pocket some of the benefits actually themselves. And the thing about data is that to stay with Alex's comparison, like, it is the new gold, but it's actually not even one gold bar. It can be multiple gold bars at the same time, because the thing with data is that you can duplicate it also at no cost. So your data that you that you provide can be used by one company to sell intelligent transport services, for the other to manage the infrastructure, for the other to ship goods in a different way. So there are different uses of the same data that you can make, which makes that the value can be exponential. But of course, it's difficult for people to join that when they feel that they're pocketing none of these golden stacks, that actually all the golden stacks are pocketed by somebody else than themselves. So that is really a key issue, I think, to tackle. And Alex already mentioned like some of it in the context of the file that he is working on, which is an extremely important one, the Digital Services Act. But that's exactly why, because we realize that we are encouraging and these common data spaces and the mobility common data space. That is exactly intended to give this safe environment to share data and reap some of the benefits by it, by making sure that whoever is in between is neutral as an intermediary. I think that is like very, very important to preserve. And of course, you need to make sure that also the small companies can embrace the technology, because as Mr. Gomez also said, the data providing is one thing, but you need to be able to use it. That is actually the challenge for many companies, that to have the know-how and the technology to use it in the right way. So we need to help them to embrace that. And we need to learn from some of the pioneers also on this call, because I'm actually really inspired by some of it, what I heard already, some of it what Claire said about Lyon and Dijon when it comes to multimodal mobility, even including cycling and these type of modes. What Mr. Gomez has said about all the possibilities that you have to make your freight operations. I'm really inspired by that. And TomTom, obviously was a pioneer in itself. And I just also hope that some of these players are also willing to share some of that pioneering knowledge and how they did it with some of the smaller guys who need that inspiration, I think.
Thank you, Daniel. I think it's not only the small. We got a very interesting remark from the rail representatives also on attendance today at the conference. And the question is, for those panelists, it goes to the previous section, but also because you mentioned the small, and I just wanted to illustrate the fact that not only the small, also the big may have some concerns. So we got from SERF, so from the community of rails, for those panelists who answered no to the previous question, is the current legal framework already stimulating? So for Alex and Daniel, actually, who said no, how the legal framework could be improved without putting even more burden on operators who are originating the data. So you see, even the rail has a which doesn't surprise us, because as we said, we had this call to the EU, which is a joint call, road transport, rail, aviation, maritime. So Alex, if you want to pick it just very quickly.
Yes. Because this is very interesting, because every time that we speak about legislating, harmonizing, it's like a precondition for putting burdens on a particular segment of our industries. And I don't believe that this is the case. Therefore, I believe that a balance has to be found, a balance between interest, creating the right environment, but at the same time, yes, I believe that we should be cautious of not overburdening large part of our industries, especially in the transport sector.
Now I will just move to Ralph Peter, because we talked about cost. So cost is one side of it, and the other side is price. So cost of data, and then we look at the price of data. And also because I'm trying to the extent possible to incorporate already as many questions from the audience as possible. We had 350 people today with us, and many have lots of questions, so trying to respond to as many as possible. So Ralph Peter, before coming to you, we have a remark from Jürgen Hensgens. It's not only about having data, it's about being able to transform data to information. Only then data becomes valuable and can add benefits. So now the question to you, Ralph Peter, is if data has value, how should the operator price it? And what could they expect? What can an operator expect in return? Is it data? Is it money?
No, I think TomTom is the perfect example how to deal with data access and technology development. So we basically follow two models how to monetize data. We get from very different sources, from fleet management, from public operators, from buses, smartphones, also the OEM sector. There's one business model, and that's what I want to advocate. The value is not the data itself, is technology you create, and the outcome in terms of applications bringing benefit to an end user. That is where the value lies, right? And many business models we follow, we getting access into a certain sector to data, and we're giving something back into an application stack, right? It can be very different. It can be live traffic for navigation. It can be a better map for somebody. It can or takes the multimodal transportation framework, even if operators share data of timetable in a harmonized way. Some system integrator can add value, right? And here again, the data itself is one thing, but to add the value, that's the most important thing. This win-win ecosystem. That is where TomTom became big in the last 10 years. And this is what I want to advocate. Look in your ecosystem and create these flywheels of win-win business models. Then you can also, as a small company, have benefit from the data. And it's less about the pricing of a single raw data set. It's more about what value I create in this flywheel of a win-win model on application level, right?
Thank you. Perhaps Claire or Louise, would you like also to, because you have a lot of experience with data, so I don't know. Louise, I see you nodding.
Yeah. Well, listen. I mean, just to add that the data as alone, it doesn't have really value. So we don't need to be any expectations of getting money for this data. But the data, as we said, and Claire also mentioned, combined with the business know-how and the expertise of the sector, is we transform that in a value-added something. And is this value-added that will have the price? Is this value-added that the customers can buy you more than your competitors? Is the reward of the data? So the data, sorry. So it's not just the data. It's not like if we are pulling just the data. Just because of that, we need to get the benefit. In fact, when I was speaking about sharing the data, it was more thinking in an anonymized way, obviously in a secure way, more in a freedom way, in order to get more insight and more benefit for all our community. But each company, what they need to transform is this data with the expertise in a value-added offer. It could be a value-added because the carriers in our sectors are happier working with XPO than with others. This is a price for that. There is also because customers prefer working with us because maybe we gave them more visibility or more service in terms of capacity. This is why or how we are trying to evaluate that. But just to be more concrete, we are costing the data. Normally, when we have projects, we are expecting a return on investment of this technology, and normally we expecting we targeted less than 12 months in order to have the right return on investment when we do this type of exercise.
In our case, let me be very clear. Our strategy is not to sell our data, nor to price them. So it's not our strategy. Our strategy is really to make, as I said before, the best use of the data that we are generating ourselves or the data that we access to. And I must add one element for your knowledge, because we are partnering again with public transport authorities. The access to their data is put under strict contractual framework, you know. So anyway, we are open with our own data, and when we use the data of, for instance, public transport authorities, it's under a contractual framework. So the things are pretty very clear.
Thank you very much, Claire. It was a great debate. We are getting close to the end of it, and we have heard a lot of valuable insights from our panelists. But now I am turning to IRU Secretary General Umberto De Preto. Umberto, you are speaking for the road transport sector on a worldwide basis. What are your takeaways from the discussions today?
And before my takeaways, let me just thank the 5 panelists. That was very, very interesting to listen to, and thanks for not only your insights, but your passion. I think the first question was very interesting, saying, will COVID accelerate the uptake of digitalization? I think just the fact that we're meeting here by video is already that answer, the proof that it's happening. The impact on transport, I think it'll have great ramifications. My personal ramification means I've been home more this year than in the last 25 years. You have to ask my wife if that's a good or bad thing, but to be seen. She can be asked. Another really interesting part of this was what Ralph Peter said. He said, data is my life. I love that. But for most people, data is not their life. Most people equate data with Zuckerberg standing in front of the Senate talking about data privacy. And this is how we usually equate the whole issue of data, or Amazon or IBM. This is how most people look at data. But I'm quite pleased to see the interest that this conference has drawn. While the actual online participants might be fewer, we actually had 721 registrations from 80 countries. 55 of those countries are not from the EU and from all 5 continents. So we see this as very much a global issue. I'll get back to that in my concluding remarks. But if we look at the whole issue of transport and transport data, we see that transport is a huge data generator, and this will only increase both in goods sector and the passenger sector, as you have all alluded to and I think very well outlined. I always cite my sons when I talk about data, because my sons say, if it's not on here, it doesn't exist. And this is the youth. This is not, I'd love to say it's the future, it's today. So either we grasp that and get up to speed with reality, or we'll actually miss the future. The other thing is, when we talk about autonomous vehicles and all these other technologies, not only they're in the future, but are here today, if they're not data driven, it's useless to have an autonomous vehicle that you have to chase down with paper or with paper tickets as a passenger. From our perspective as IRU, we have been managing data as those mandated by the United Nations to manage the TIR Convention. Just to give you just some numbers, we've managed 200 million e-transactions during our mandate. That represents about 3.5 billion data exchanges. And why we've been able to do this successfully is because we've been seen as the trusted third party for both business to business and business to customs or to government. And this is important because when we've heard the concerns expressed here today, one of the biggest issues, even the commissioner cited this, and that is trust. So whatever legal framework we come up with must first and foremost ensure trust. It must ensure that there's mutual benefit. And this is super important for the SMEs, because the SMEs, when they are sharing their data, they'll be asking, what's in it for me? If we look at a very recent example and a very, sorry to say, painful example, GDPR, that was a very painful experience for SMEs, very costly. And at the end of the day, saying, really, what did we gain out of this? And with all that we had to put in place to be GDPR compliant. But ultimately, we have to see this as a global issue. Again, 55 non-EU registered. This is an opportunity for the EU to take the lead and make sure that whatever's put in place is right, not only for the EU, but globally. I love citing my little example of globalization, that it takes 29 companies from 18 countries just to have a simple cup of coffee in Geneva. To build a car in Göteborg, Sweden takes 10,000 suppliers. So you can start understanding the importance of transport and the data generated from that. So anything, when we move something, it is global by definition. And so we must make sure that whatever we put in place is global. IRU, for its part, will continue to embrace the digital transition. We'll continue to push for E-tier. We'll continue to push for ECMR together with partners such as Transfollow. We'll continue to push for e-visas, e-permits, everything. I like what Luis said. We have all this documentation. It's ridiculous that we have 90% of the information in the documents that's identical, and yet you need all these various documents. We should just have a platform where you stick all the data in there, and there, depending on whatever mode you're using, then we can use that data, and that will facilitate intermodality. It'll facilitate more secure movements. It'll actually just make the entire system more efficient. So the call from the IRU is firstly to say thank you. Let's keep pushing, and if we do, and when we do develop a legal framework, let's make it make sense for not only the big players, but also for the SMEs that represent 80 to 85% of our industry. Thanks again, all of you. Great conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Humberto. Now I would like to take the opportunity, because there will be a survey which you can soon see also on the chat, in the chat box on your screens. There will be a survey asking the participants on how they found the event today. But because we still have the panel members with us, I would like if you could summarize in one word or 2 words how do you feel about the event? How did you find the event today? How would you summarize it in 1 word? Can I start with Claire again?
I would say data is not king, but queen. Thank you.
Good one. Good one.
Thank you, Claire. Next, Daniel. You are muted.
Yeah, like I think that's indeed like your data is not only queen, it's also the gold, and let's make sure that everybody has access to the mine.
Everybody's empowered. Yeah. Good.
Yes.
Ralph Peter.
I would say data sharing is caring.
Campaign I will leave Luis at the end to for the last but not at least word. So Alex.
Data is gold, but let's have equal access to this gold.
Equal access, good. And Luis?
Well, just say it. I mean, I agree with what has been said, but data and digitalization, I mean, it's not just the future, it's the present, as it has been, electricity in the past. So we need to get the benefit of that. We need to have a good mind frame, but clearly we need to push strong for data and digitalization.
Thank you, Luis. So now we really got to the thank you part. So I would like to thank you very much to all the panelists, the panel members, for their time spent with us today, for their valuable insights into their work, but also into their company work and into their legislative work. And at the same time, I would like to thank the audience for being so interactive, for staying with us and being so interested in this topic. I would also like to thank our technical moderator, Claire, for passing the questions in due course and offering all the support today, and the larger team who offered the support for today's event. And I have to apologize that we are not able to take all your questions from the audience because luckily and fortunately there were so many, because the interest is so big. But this also shows that this is just the start, and we will continue this discussion, and this event is meant as being a start of the discussion. We will follow up with an email, and in this email you will find the link to the recording of the event, which I announced also in the beginning of the event, and again the survey, the link to the survey, which you can also, the entire audience can also find, but also the panel members, if you would like to add more things, you can also find it now in the chat box in front of you. So thank you again very much, and have a great afternoon. Goodbye.